is it?
Doesn't really stop for us.
It used to, didn't
Yeah.
it? Didn't it used to in the summer, it seemed quiet? I don't know. What changed?
You know, I thought Mary was coming, but. I always forget. It's just become part of you. It's just become part of you.
Do you take off during the summer, Diane?
You know, just if I take a vacation or something, but not a lot.
You know, what's
Usually, most
funny
of
is
the, I go to a couple conferences in the
also
summer,
PBA.
and sometimes they're in nice places, so you feel like you're on vacation at night anyway.
Waiting for PBA, they were invited, they didn't, I noticed they didn't respond, so.
About Robert.
Robert has sent,
Joanne Hopkins
Yeah.
with
Hi,
ASOP.
Joanne.
Hi.
so we're gonna give PBA a few more minutes. See if they-
We can give these out. I'm gonna keep a set. One of this. They're both say 2000. I think what she did is put 19 and 18s behind it. Okay. So they just need one packet of that each.
Yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, package.
Yes, I'll send him one, thank you.
Is Mary coming?
Just noticed she didn't think she was on the original invite, so I think she's.
Whose is this right here? Is that yours?
Mike.
Oh. Who's coming?
First scan.
Part-time Cal. They say estimate.
Next one looks like it's out of
Couple
whack.
hundred.
So
You don't always throw that.
that's always how it is. One plan always pays for the other.
We should run a report.
Yeah. You have the grant?
Oh. Like job sharing?
Next one, 42 and 30, 31. Yeah.
We're waiting for police.
ended up getting promotion, is no longer in the bargaining unit, so there was some miscommunication. So Kevin O'Sullivan is on his way, but if you want to get started,
Okay.
I don't know how long it'll be before he gets here.
The same.
Uh-huh. All right, well, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Does everybody know everybody?
You go around the table.
Okay.
Joanne Hopkins, I'm the representative for ASOP. I work at Roll Public High School. Good morning.
Okay, good morning.
Theo Harris, Palm Beach County Classroom Teachers Association.
Justin Katz, Classroom Teachers Association.
Joey Brenner, SEIU. I'm going to scoot to the middle here.
Vicki Evans Paré, Director of Employee and Labor Relations.
Marilyn Busico, Benefits Manager.
Diane Howard, Director of Risk and Benefits.
Mike Burke, CFO.
Please.
Okay, so I provided you with the January through May claims for this year. And to give you some comparison, I gave you the January through May claims for last year. Are they all in there? Yes. The strange thing about it is the district put in 5 million more money, so in these 5 months, it would be, whatever, not quite, yeah, 2.5 maybe. We have a few less employees, and the claims are almost exactly to the penny. They're less than $100,000 difference than they were for the 5 months of last year. I've never seen this, never. The deficit in the high option HMO is $5 million year to date, so it's like $1 million a month that we lose on that plan. It was exactly the same last year, and all our plan design changes were in the high option HMO. So you can just imagine where it would be if we didn't input those plan design changes. Remember, we raised the deductible, we put a ER co-insurance on it instead of copay. So I don't really have a reason to tell you why that is. It just happened, and I find it very interesting. It goes to tell you, I'm not proposing anything on it today, but the high option HMO, we have to start thinking about it. We're going to have to find a way to combine both plans, because what's happening, people that are using the plan are going to stay in the high option HMO, and it's going to be like the old PPO. We're not going to be able to charge enough to cover their claims. So something to think about. You always get adverse selection as you start raising the deductible and premiums. People will just, the healthy ones will say, okay, now it's not worth it for me anymore, but it's always worth it for some people. So keep that in mind, because it's probably going to have to happen one of these days. Anybody have any questions on these? Is it easy for you to follow and everything? They changed the style, so it's a little bit different report, but USI does this for us every month.
Are you just pointing, is it that 79? Is that what you're really pointing to, the 79.9 million versus 79.8 million?
Well, that shows you that our spend is about the same, but if you look at the first page under the 2019 one, that's the high option plan. And if you look at the second to the last line, it shows you 5.7. That's our loss year to date in the high option plan. Overall, on the first page, we are at a plus. Wait, let me find out where that is. Let's change this report. We spent 79 and we brought in 77, so we're plus 2.9.
You mean negative 2.9?
No.
Positive.
Positive.
Positive. Keep in mind that our claims start going way up in the summer. So in July and August, you'll see a real bump up, and it could be a couple million a month more. So we need to be positive the first half of the year, because we're always negative the second half of the year. I expect that we'll lose a little this year, but not alarming. You know, the reserves will cover it for this year.
Just want to share, I guess, the Finance Council, the state finance officers had their meeting recently, and we compare notes on things like health insurance, and we're fortunate to be in this situation, so I appreciate the cooperation over the years to manage our cost, because there's some other large districts, I heard his figures as high as 19%, and they're really looking at some tough choices because health costs. What we've experienced here is pretty unique to have the kind of run that we've had without having to do, big premium increases or anything like that. So the cooperation at the table and everything we're doing to keep costs down really seems like it's paying off. It's one less budget problem, not to have.
19% for us would have been $38 million.
I know, it's huge. This whole program is about, what, 200 million? So,
We reached 200 million last year in claims and costs. Okay, so that said, the first thing I'm passing out is, last year, the district did fund $5 million more, or for 2019. So what I did is I took the page from our contract and updated the rates that we're paying, because we have to start somewhere for this year. And so I wanted to start, this is what the rates look like and where we put the $5 million. And I will go over a little bit. You'll notice that in section B, we put 40 a month extra in the single-only low-option HMO, even though that plan is not losing money. But keep in mind that we have to fund the plan enough to keep the plan going, and that's how the district funds it. That amount of money every month goes into our health fund based on anybody enrolled in employee-only low option. So I had to put enough money in the plan because I figured we would get a migration from the high option because of the plan changes. But this is just our starting. I just wanted you to see that because otherwise it just looks funny. I can either just go over the few things that I'm proposing or just pass out the language.
We can pass out the language and then you can go over the few things you're changing, so.
Okay. For you?
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The right copy. This is not going to hurt. I just want you to all know.
So there's no increases, perfect.
We all have different pain thresholds, don't we?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so the first thing I see, the first line, I want to, effective January 1, 2018, I want to change that to effective January 1, 2020. I missed that, sorry.
Does that pick up on 1A too, like right below that?
Not really. I don't always change things
Okay.
that I'm not making a change to.
Yeah,
You know,
some of it's for historical purposes.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
all right, thank you.
Okay, there's nothing else changed on that page. Just so you all know, under dental, even though we don't bargain the carrier is changing in January because of an RFP that we did. It should be fine for employees. Premiums are lower, and the benefits are enhanced. So hopefully everyone's dentist is going to be on it, and we're finalizing negotiations with them tomorrow. It should be fine for everybody. They're a well-respected company, and they're offering exactly the same plan design, except they've enhanced the number of cleanings and the deep cleanings that people can get. So people will like that.
Which
And they
company?
do offer adult orthodontia at a $1,000 limit on the PPO, which we've never had adult orthodontia on the PPO.
And that's with who?
Humana.
Humana. And everybody had a rep on the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, the next page, nothing. The third page, and this is where the rates are, and I'll explain what we're doing. You'll notice that in the categories of employee spouse and employee family. Now, remember, I'm starting out with the updated rates that you saw on this 2019. On that sheet that I just gave you before, I updated the rates, so like the 540, if you look back at one of your old contracts, that's a higher number because it used to be, in your old contract, it would have been 525. But I started out with 540 because we updated it for 2019. District started funding a little bit higher. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah, but employee, spouse, and
Okay.
employee plus family?
Yeah, so what I'm proposing is to increase what the employee, anybody that is covering a spouse or a domestic partner will pay $50 more a month, starting in 2021, not 2020, because we are going to offer, and later in the contract, we are going to allow them to do wellness rewards each individually. So a married couple will be able to get $100 a month. Each person can do their rewards separately. I believe we have to do that. I couldn't make it only $25 each and keep the rates the same, because that wouldn't be fair to the employee. I think more employees will make out with this, because think of it now, if an employee is married or has a domestic partner and the partner or spouse doesn't do wellness rewards, but the employee does, they don't get it. Right now, they both have to do it. This way, if it goes up $50 and still only one person does it, it's going to be a wash for them, because now they're going to get $50. They're going to get the credit of $50 every month. If they both do it, it won't hurt anybody. So the only people who will be impacted by this rate are people that neither one will do the wellness rewards.
Can you, I assume you've done this, can you provide us an analysis of if this change had applied for the most recent year of wellness, completions, how much less the district would be, I assumed if someone calculated this out to say, right now the district pays $50 extra, then this proposal, 60% of teachers or employees do the wellness program. So someone's calculated how much you spend right now and how much you would hypothetically spend under wellness trends. Is there information to that effect? Like, what's the net result of this for the district based on previous year's wellness completion rates?
Well, the plan might get a little more money in it, but that's not the reason we're doing it. I don't anticipate a lot. I'm hoping that it inspires people that maybe wouldn't do it because they figured their spouse wasn't doing it, so they weren't going to get it. Right now, we're at a little bit above 50% of the number of employees that will do it. And I think we could work on, and maybe with your help, we could work on letting people know how easy it is with the missions now, because there isn't really a reason why somebody shouldn't save this money.
You say slightly more than half of,
Our benefited population.
so that could mean spouse and, employee and spouse.
Right, I don't know where, I don't know if with single employees or people that are only covering themselves, is it higher percentage in that group and lower percentage in employee when there's a spouse? That I don't know.
Overall.
Overall. I'll try to look at that. I don't know if I can break it down into that detail.
We just know we've seen, the complaints that you get from the employee is my wife, my husband, my spouse refuses to do the wellness. And so then I'm getting penalized on my insurance because my spouse won't do the wellness. This would be so that if I'm the employee, I do the wellness program, I'm good. My spouse doesn't do it, that's fine, it's a wash. The only people who would be affected are those who neither the spouse or the employee do the wellness, then they're gonna see a $50 increase. Everybody else, it's gonna wash out. So what Diane is saying, and maybe, I'll say it again, if you have an employee and a spouse, and I know my spouse isn't doing the wellness, so I'm not getting the reward at this point, so why am I gonna bother doing it? That's what we're seeing happen, or what we believe is happening. So in this case, the employee then would still be incentivized to do the wellness, because the purpose of the wellness program is not necessarily just give people discounts, it's to improve their health. And we've seen that over the course of time where our pre-diabetics has gone up, but our number of diabetics has gone down. We're seeing that our employees are healthier by doing this program. So this just incentivizes the employees then to do the program even if their spouse refuses to.
So the net result is that 50% of employees will either see a wash or they'll get the extra discount if their spouse do it, and 50% of employees will see an increase in their monthly premiums based on completion rates.
Well,
I
unless,
can't, I don't think we can do that because that's
No,
50,
because-
50, so that's not
Well,
100%,
that
so I
50,
think
the
it's smaller.
benefit is a mix of people who wash because only one of their family does it, or even if they complete it now, the premium washes it. So I'm trying to figure out how,
I
But
think it'll
the
be
premium,
less.
the premium increase is only happening in the categories of employee and spouse and family.
right,
So
those are
you're
the
gonna have a
most,
large proportion of people right now that are in that 50% that are single, because when you look at the numbers,
Yeah,
we
it's
only
the
have
majority.
5,000 that have employee and spouse or family combined. So you're gonna have already some of those people who are receiving, so it's less than 5,000 that are gonna potentially have an impact of a rate increase.
and I think it'll inspire some people to do it, so I think it won't be at 50%. I think that'll be too high.
Let
So
me
now
ask-
you're under 2,000 district-wide that could get affected by it in a negative way.
Right, let me ask this. You say that if, where you have the employee and spouse, the employee does it, the spouse doesn't. Because the employee is doing it, the $50 is covered, increase is covered. So it's a
Right.
wash for them.
Right.
Currently, they wouldn't get it, right? Currently, under the current plan, they both have to do it in order to get one $50 savings.
Right.
Under this new way, so I think that if the employee does it and the spouse doesn't, I think after 1 year of that and they realize they're not getting it, the employee won't do it anymore if they know their spouse won't do it. But maybe they're not against it. Maybe they will do it.
Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out the dollars. So if my spouse, if I do it, my spouse doesn't, I pay an extra 50, I get the 50 reward, so that's a wash, that's what you're
wash,
saying.
correct.
So if my spouse does it, is that an extra 50
Yes.
benefit?
Yes, you'll actually see a $50, you'll get $100 a month credit instead of $50 a month credit.
That you're getting now,
Well, you're not getting anything now if you both don't do
if your
it.
spouse doesn't do it.
Right.
But if your spouse does it,
You
You're
get a
getting
50.
you're getting
So if
50.
you and your spouse are both doing it, it'll be a wash, because you'll, instead of, your premium will go up $50, but you're gonna get an extra 50.
So,
Well, no, hold on. I
so a
think we got
couple,
the- If you have,
no, she's right. I mean, I just want to say it another way, I guess. If you have, let's say we have a couple now, a spouse, they're both doing the plan to qualify for the $50. The premiums are going to go up $50, so now they both have to do it to get a $100 reward to offset that increase. That couple that's both doing it, they're not going to see a windfall. They're just going to continue, they'll break even.
they'll still get the $50 wellness discount every month.
It'll net out to the same.
They'll each get a $50 one, so they'll get it.
Yeah, but the net is,
Will
the net
force-
is 50.
So for their household, it's keeping them level.
Yes, they won't see anything. They won't
Right.
see it.
So the real, so that extra 50 comes into play when there's only one person doing it.
Correct.
So when both of them do it, then that's where you get the extra 50, really.
But I believe it'll only hurt if both of them don't do it. It's the only way it's gonna hurt them, if they both don't do it. Because it goes up
But-
$50, right? And if one of them does it, it's a wash.
Well, the increase is a wash, but they're not getting the regular $50 benefit reward.
Which they don't now.
That's the problem.
Well, they don't now.
They're not
They
getting
don't-
it.
Okay, so if the employee and the spouse, and only one of them does it, they're not receiving a discount
Right.
Currently.
currently. So if
Correct.
one of them doesn't do it in the future, they're going to at least see a $50 savings, which would offset the fact that the rates went up. So they're not going to be any worse off than the current year with neither of them. And they actually would be better because they're not going to pay the higher cost.
But
They're not receiving additional money, but they wouldn't be worse off.
well, I mean, it is trying to force participation, right? Because let's say we've got both the spouses are not participating. If they don't change their behavior and at least one of them start doing it, they're going to see their premiums go up $50. Someone's going to have to start doing the rewards program to avoid that potential increase, which hopefully will drive up the participation in the rewards program. So,
Does that make sense?
Well, if we've had to discuss it this long here, we know what difficulty it's going to be, trying to explain it to our teachers. So we're going to need a way of making this clear where the benefit is. Because otherwise, we see it as a $50 premium increase. And if I know my spouse isn't going to do it, then now I'm paying an extra $50.
But if you do it, because you can control yourself, you won't see that extra $50 premium increase.
Right, but you don't get it now, but you basically have to do it to avert an additional increase.
Yes. And I don't think the law would allow me to make the price different. To say if you're married and you have a spouse covered, you only get $25 each. I have to separate the employee and the spouse.
All right, here's the second part of my question has to do with family. Because you're doing the same thing with employee plus family. And that could be an employee with children.
Yeah, but it's the employee and the reason why
And
it's
the
employee and
spouse.
family is because the spouse is
Spouse is
including, because
included.
you have another plan, which is employee and children.
Employee plus children.
yeah,
Okay.
and it's a lot
And-
cheaper.
And we didn't change that.
Okay.
Just so you know, our price that our employees pay, we're the lowest in the state. When I look at what Miami-Dade, who always tracked with us, last year they went to, if you're hired after a certain date, you're paying the dollars that Broward employees pay. So our premium is pretty amazing.
For the new hires.
And presumably, any change that is associated with the wellness program and these increases would also be agreeable to that change from 4 to 3 of the metrics being necessary to qualify?
No.
Something we've been interested in the past, and
This plan is working. It's making our employees healthier, it's bringing costs down, so why would we want to change that?
because if you got thousands more people to do it, even if it was at a 3/5 metric instead of a 4/5, that's thousands more people being tipped off to health conditions. So I understand it's not as high a threshold to qualify, but if the goal is to get people to become aware of their health deficiencies, thousands more people getting 60 out of 100% instead of 80 out of 100% if they don't do anything.
But what we saw in the past was being aware of it doesn't trigger movement. The movement came with the real wellness that we saw was when it was, you had to do it. When it was the 4 out of 5, not 3 out of 5. When it was lower, people got the information, they didn't do anything with it. So now, if you've had any kind of, experience with how the wellness is doing now with if you don't pass the 4 out of 5, they've made it so much easier to get the 4 out of 5. In fact, just for my own, right? I made the mistake of having shrimp at dinner before I did the wellness and had the biometrics, so my cholesterol was higher, right? So I didn't pass on 2 things, which was the bad cholesterol and the cholesterol, right? So, yeah, I talked to Diane about this.
That shrimp must have been loaded with butter or
It-
something. because
But I had a full blood draw like the week before, so yeah, it probably was. But anyway, you could do on the rally, you could do the missions, right? So it was stuff like, walking 2,000 steps a day, or walking 5,000 steps a day, or, walking 2 miles a day. It had some of those things in there. So I have a Fitbit. So I just hooked that. I picked those missions with regard to how many steps I'm taking, right? Hooked it to my Fitbit, had my Fitbit sync with the Rally app. It not only did it on a go-forward basis, but it pulled the data from my Fitbit for the months before and gave me credit for having done what I was supposed to be doing as part of the missions. And I finished and got the 100% within less than a month. And I didn't have to do anything except just log on to the Rally app so it would sync with my Fitbit. That was the only thing I had to do. Nothing different. And I had the 100%. In fact, I had to keep going back and looking, going, it can't be this easy. It really can't be this easy.
And Vicky's going to be representing us in the School District Olympics next year. So
Yes, walking my 2,000 steps, right there. But no, they've made it with these missions much easier. Instead of just where we had to do the telephonic coaching, which we know that people were not happy with. People are still doing that, but these missions on Rally are kind of fun when you look at them and you get these coins and you can put them in for these sweepstakes to get prizes. I mean, they've made it very, how do they call it, gamifying wellness, where they made it kind of a game. So that's why, I don't think moving it from 3 to 5, one is it's not good for our employees, and 2, it's really not that difficult to end up getting what you need to get the full reward.
Now, we would be interested in talking about lowering the blood pressure marks and the weight. So we're too lenient in those measurements.
So you want to make them tougher to qualify for the current 4 out of 5?
If you want to talk about
That's the opposite.
rewards, I'd be interested in
Well-
talking about it.
I'm having a hard enough time with the current numbers.
Well, I heard what you said, Vicki, but what concerns me is that we're still not, in the 70–80% people participating. And what Justin just basically suggested is a way to try and increase participation. And if we feel that participating has to do with improved health, then I think that step will cause people to actually get involved, because they're going to get engaged in their health issues no matter what the requirements are. So if we can get them to take that step by reducing the number of requirements, that would be great for us, because now at least I'm hearing it. And what you were saying was one that didn't drive them to change. Well, I think that we got a better shot at driving them to change if they're seeing it and hearing it than not. And that's what I think we're concerned about, is because if we're stagnant at 50%, that means that half of our people aren't doing this wellness, and we really need them to do it. And so if we're really concerned about their health and them seeing it and taking action on it, I think that would really help us in that regard.
Do you know that 50% that isn't doing it, do they get any part of it done? Like, for instance, do they go get the biometrics and then don't complete any actions they have to, or do they
Yes.
just not get the biometrics done?
No, they are participating in parts of the program, and it's just non-completion. Others are not doing anything, and we'd have to kind of slice and dice to get the number of who's doing nothing at all,
Just a,
versus some that are doing parts of the program but just not completing.
Are you able to pull that basic stat, like what percentage get the biometrics versus what percentage ultimately qualify, to find out that gap between people who are taking that first step, but then when they find out they have to do some extra stuff, they're bailing on it? Because that's the target, that's the soft target audience. Those are people who are trying but then giving up. So if that's 5% versus maybe it's 25%, that if it's a big percent of people bailing after the first step, I think I understand the desire to increase the rebate from the spouse and to increase the premiums and the cancels and all that, but all that really focuses on is cost, when if the goal is legitimately, and it's cost related too, legitimately to get thousands more people to engage this, and that will lower costs overall on a much grander scale by better health. I understand what you're going for here, but isn't the most prudent way to get cost savings to increase health, not necessarily just start tipping the premium scale? Like, we need those thousands of people to become engaged and more aware, because then that saves millions in future treatment, not just $50 a head in premiums on an annual basis. Like, I think we're thinking small with this or simple with this versus if our goal is to get more people healthy, this is the kind of the simplest way to address the cost, but not the health. I don't know.
I mean, I think that's a good question. We may have to go back and try to see how much data we can pull out of it. You know, Diane and I have had a running conversation about this for years because I like to complain about my experiences and stuff. So, but what she kind of explained to me was, it's not just the awareness. You got to start like modifying people's behavior and their choices and lifestyle. And I've seen it with myself where, like, you know, I was able, I think I hit 3 or 4 metrics one year, and I started getting concerned about my weight and stuff, so I exercised more. And the next year, I actually hit 5 of 5. And then I slacked off the following year, and I slipped back down. And, you know, just the lack of exercise in my own life led to my cholesterol creeped up, and then my BMI went over. So it does, now I know, like, I'm putting off taking my test this year because I feel like I got to spend the next month like running around the block or something until I can get ready for the next test. But but I know, so as much as I'll complain to Diane about it, say, man, that BMI is kind of stringent, you know. If I'm really 160 pounds, I'm going to be, you know, stick. But my real weight. So anyway, all that, you guys don't need to hear all this, but the value in it is truly getting people not just to say, okay, I know I have an issue, but to do something about it and to motivate them for their own, you know, for their own health in the long run.
Believe it or not, when you take the test and you fail, it makes people, I got to do better. It's so much more, and I can't get the right word, but much bigger impetus for somebody to take action than it was when we just gave them numbers that they had. Because it used to be in the old days, people said, if you know your numbers, you'll make a change. That did not happen. But we did see a change in people's behavior when they do it. And I think one of the reasons that somebody won't participate is they know that they're not their healthiest and they're really not ready to make any change, so they just figure, why bother? And people have to be ready for change. We all know that about ourselves. If you're not in a place that you're ready, you're not going to make a change. There's always going to be some people, like I've told you before, I could put $5 there and somebody won't take it, even if I say it's yours.
Do you feel that figure is 50%?
Of the people that aren't ready to make, no, some of it is just a little bit of laziness and they don't start right away or they don't. We did in the last few years start looking at a little bit of what you're saying, and we found that some people just weren't doing the survey. And now with Rally, the survey is the first thing you do.
Yes.
And that was kind of on purpose, even though some people just want that form, right? But if you and you can bypass it, but it's a little difficult to bypass it. So they go on there, and the first thing comes up is the survey, because isn't that a shame that somebody would do the biometrics, even do their missions or the alternative action, whatever it was, and then forget the survey? So we are working when we notice any kind of trend to try to help them.
But I think that because you're putting this additional, making this reward, separating it out and adding $50 would be an added incentive. So it's kind of like what Justin said in the beginning. In doing this, you're kind of doing two things at one time to increase their awareness. One, you're making it more cost-effective, and then also getting them to want to take advantage of it, to actually do something if you have it 3 out of 3 out of 5 as opposed to 4 out of 5. So I think that, you know, those two steps together, you know, may achieve moving it, and I don't know, but I think it'll put us, you know, 60, 70% participation.
We don't want it that bad.
That good.
We want people to participate, but we want it to have some meaning. And like I told you, the amount, we need to start looking at lowering that blood pressure requirement, lowering that BMI. So I didn't want to bring that up this year. So anyway, I think we should move on, and let's go through our proposal, our complete proposal. On that same page we're talking about, under C, I need to mark C effective January 1, 2021 as well. So it's on page 3 on the bottom. And you'll notice that I took out paragraph E that was on that 2019 sheet. It just doesn't even show on this. Because that was just about us funding more in 2019. There's nothing, no changes until the bottom of the next page. We had 2 paragraphs in there because of the changes we did effective January 1 of 19. I'm just cleaning it up and pulling out the old stuff. There's no change at all. It's just cleaning up the language. If we go on, there's no other changes until you get to the bottom of page 7.
Okay, now you're taking out 8A, the first paragraph, and that's doing what now?
Well, if you remember that for January of 19, we made, and we bargained this, I believe, in 17.
Okay,
We were making changes for 2019. That's when we put in the ER copay, took away the ER copay and the high option. So I'm just taking out the old language that showed what the benefit coverage was in 2017 and 18. And I'm leaving what started in 2019 and continuing that. It's no change at all from what we're doing right now.
So it looks like there was like a $5 increase in 2019 on some of these copays.
If
Yes.
you remember, Theo, for 2019, we raised the copays by like $5. So we had in the beginning for 17, 18, this is what the copays are going to be, and then beginning January 1, 19, this is what it's going to be. So we just take out all the old stuff.
we
is
didn't come
what she's
back to the
doing.
table to pull this out for the start of 19.
Right.
Correct.
We did a 2-year deal, if you remember last time.
Remembering, it's just removing the historical record because it's already
Yeah.
there in place.
Correct. Okay, no change on the rest of page 5, no change on page 6. And then at the bottom of page 7, we're taking out for newly hired employees that start working in September, we're proposing that, start working in August, we're proposing that starting in (2020), that any employee hired after January 1 of 2020 that is benefit eligible, their benefits will, no matter when they're hired in the year, be effective on the first day of the month following 30 continuous calendar days, which is the way it currently is right now, except for less than 12-month employees hired in the month of August. If you're hired in the month of August, and it will stay that way this August, and your calendar has you working more than 15 or more days of the month, your benefits start September 1. And we're proposing to just leave it as October 1.
Okay, so you're taking away something that we negotiated in order to get the new hires, to get their insurance started September 1. So you're saying that nobody will start September 1 who's hired in August, and they would have to wait until October 1 for their insurance to start?
Correct.
Well, that was a benefit that we negotiated, several years ago to make sure that new employees were able to get health insurance coverage sooner, particularly those who came in and worked at least half the month.
Well, there's a couple reasons that it's not so important anymore. One is that a majority, let's say, of the new hires, especially for teachers, are probably going to be under age 26. And many of them stay on their parents' plan until they turn 26. So they're not that interested right away. And we're just saying, let's just treat everybody the same, no matter when you're hired. Currently, if you're hired in July and you do a job like somebody in my department, your coverage would not be you could start July 2nd And your benefits would not be effective August 1, they would be effective September 1.
Yeah.
So we're
Well,
just saying, let's just keep everybody the same.
I have a problem with that one. I'll just let you know, I don't want to sit and talk about it a long time, but I, have a real concern about that, because I see that as a recruitment tool for us as well.
Okay, and another problem, though, keep in mind, a lot of employees struggle to get their enrollment done, and it happens so fast that September 1 comes around that they're put into the default plan. So it is an area of complaint that we get. If you go on further down on page 8, is where we put under 14B, the language about effective January 2021, because that's when the discount would go into play. Any covered spouse or covered domestic partner will also be eligible to earn a separate health rewards credit of $50 per month, which will be reflected in the employee's premium deduction. If the employee pay cycle is different than 26 pays, the credit will be prorated with the annual amount being the same. And that's what we were discussing earlier. Then, there are no changes until the very last paragraph on page 11, where the district is willing to establish an on-site clinic for a 2-year trial to see how it goes, with co-pays of $10. And that is on, I should have underlined it, the whole chapter, whole paragraph 17 needs to be underlined, because it's all new. That is something you wanted. And we think that's a positive step. It's going to be back here in the IBIS section. We're going to be able to use 2 of the concretables back there. And I am working with the consultant to develop an RFP, and we hope to have it, I hope it's a little earlier, but put in the contract by July 2020. Might not take that long, and we're not going to delay it if we could start it earlier.
And we're going to use real trained physicians, not just somebody with like an educational doctorate or something like that.
It's a good idea. I understand the temptation, though.
We have plenty of doctors. We'd
Would any
actually,
of
we'd
the,
do an RFP for the medical provider, right? That'd be one of the next steps if we reach agreement.
Would any of their wellness rewards activities that are currently done, probably off-site? I mean, I don't know exactly how that all works, so would any of those activities, could it be possible to include them in some of the work that the clinic does to kind of increase participation that way?
Yes, and I won't have the details of that until we actually get a contract, but that is definitely an idea that we're proposing. I know one company I talked about said we might be able to go to the schools and do it, like say, okay, the clinic won't be open for 3 hours this morning. We're going to be at different schools and make it a little easier instead of trying to do what we're doing with the on-site right now. Is, we do it within a 3 to 4 week period. And it's just hard to get into all the schools on certain days. You have to have minimums. I mean, last year it worked a little bit better this year because they're using Quest and the minimum was only 30. So that did improve it a little bit. But we probably will stop doing it on-site the way we're doing it now if we can get the clinic people to do it. Of course, they'll be able to do it by going to the clinic, which will benefit the people around here.
Yeah.
But, for the western and northern and southern folks, we might try to, I'm going to try to work that out with whoever gets the contract. We're going to visit a few choices. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to go to visit the one that MedExpress runs, and they run it for, do you remember the name of the company? It's a restaurant business, not something like Darden, but it's not Darden, it's the one that does,
Chartwell's?
huh?
Chartwell's, maybe?
I
No?
don't-
Sodexo?
Their food
Those are
service
the bigger
provider.
ones,
Yeah, they do, like Roadhouse
yeah.
and all those. I can't remember the name of the company, but anyway, I have an appointment I'll be up at a conference up that way, and I'm gonna go look at it, just to see how it's run. I went out west here to look at something run by Premier Family Practice out in Wellington, and they run a real nice clinic, and I like the way that one was designed. So we've been like looking at them, and we're gonna see what the experts tell us and how it should be set up.
Have you been to City of West Palm Beach's clinic and City of Delray Beach's clinic? Because those might be more.
Right, I haven't, but that's a good idea. I know that the police have always talked about the sheriff's one, so.
Yeah, the county fire and PBSO are the ones that people tout a lot.
Yeah. Never been to that one.
And if it works out, we can start adding what can be done at the clinic. So I'm hoping to do pharmacy. I just don't know enough right now on what we can do, but it would be like generic pharmacy, x-rays in the future, So anyway, we're giving you this proposal as a package, so keep that in mind on things that might irritate you a little bit, that the overall benefit is good.
That's what we say too about our proposals.
I'm going to use that
Well,
next
we'll
week.
see it when we see it.
We're all open-minded. Good way to move forward.
Well, do you have any questions for Diane, or you guys just want to caucus, and what's the pleasure of the unions?
The Pleasure of the Unions. That's my autobiography. I'd like to caucus, but you guys are amenable. I mean, if you guys have more questions, feel free. I'll be here.
How long do you think you need for caucus?
30?
Sure.
Let me see if the other rooms are available. I know CTA doesn't like to stay in here.
Because of
Too many microphones.
spy games.
Trust issues.
We'll just turn on a stereo and have them use a service revolver a couple times.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we'll tell 'em.
They are available?
They are available.
All right. So you want us to call you when we're ready? Or you'll be here? Back in?
You'll either be here, or you can, if I'm not here, then you call me. How's that?
All right.
Yeah.
cake every once in a while, but just bring something good with it.
Well, apparently you didn't tell him that clearly enough. because
Brings cake
He
anyway.
never brings cake. Yeah, but there's a difference.
All right, Cass, you want to present?
Yeah. All right. So skip around in order of what I'd like to address first, and then we'll get to what I wouldn't like to address first. We got no problem with the cleanups on the language from the previous year. You know, it's passed, so no problem with that. On the altering of the 15 workdays in August, we're not on board with that. We just understand that, at least from what you said, the goal was to kind of equalize the situation for all employees, but disproportionately, our bargaining unit has hundreds and hundreds of people hired over the course of the summer, and we feel that it would impact them in a negative way. We just, if the goal is not to save some significant sum of money and it's just to try to create parity, there's inconsistencies between all the units, and so we're just not on board with that one. We negotiated that before, so it's kind of just, it's a take back that we can't sit well with. On the clinic, we're not averse to it, obviously. We wanted this. We don't necessarily know where to start on the copay. Ideally, and I think I mentioned it before, one of the big issues these clinics have when they open up is if they don't open up to a lot of fanfare and a lot of attraction, sometimes that rocky introductory period can lead to an extended period of people not wanting to utilize it or talking bad about it. So at least in our mind, rolling out the clinic in the most favorable way possible, and then after a period of time, if it determines that there's some cost imbalance there that required a copayment, so we wouldn't mind seeing that go down, ideally to zero, but
Yeah, do you have a, obstacle to making it zero for first year especially?
and then assess based on cost benefit after that.
I don't believe anything is valued if it's free. Just changes the dynamics of what is valued.
So make it $1. I mean,
It's a huge decrease if you're,
understand.
from what you pay now to $10. It's nominal.
But we're not sure until we know the usage levels and the costs and the potential savings and this and that. It's not something we're averse to having a cost associated with it, but if it's not necessary and we put it in from the onset, then it becomes obligatory.
But on the other hand, if it costs nothing, we have to negotiate an increase, which is an uphill battle. So it's easier to negotiate a decrease if it turns out that the $10, is going gangbusters, and the $10 copay is creating a surplus of money.
we find just the exact argument, like it's hard for us to negotiate a decrease in the cost if we've already established the floor as being 10. So what I'm saying is if
No, I get it. It's just,
It is-
the argument is if it's nothing, first off, nothing is valued at nothing. If it's free, I don't know that, as Diane said, that people attribute any real value to something that's just given to them.
Well, remember, the
So-
value to the dependent or the employee on the coverage is the
Tremendous.
cost savings. It's not that it costs nothing, so it's worth nothing. It's that it costs nothing, so it saves me $10 more.
And I get that, but I can tell you this, from our negotiations with everybody at that table, we haven't raised premiums in 7 and 8 years, and it has counted as nothing. We've gotten no credit when we bargain each of your individual contracts. So, to me, giving a benefit like this at $10, it is a remarkable deal of $10 as a copay instead of nothing.
Okay, and we're not necessarily against it, but our position would be that it'd be better to start at zero and adjust from there. The other big thing that we noticed is that, as you pointed out as you adjusted the rates for your proposal on the premiums, you eliminated E from the previous contract language that said the district will increase premiums by no less than 5 million in 19. The district has no intention to continue to perpetuate that contribution?
It was for the 1 year.
Right, but now the district has no intention to continue to do that?
Well, that was an extra 5 million. We don't plan on putting an extra 5 million in the plan. We will continue the funding that we've been doing at the level that we're currently doing, but not more than that per person.
So what's changed with the willingness last year versus the willingness this year on the part of the district to make that additional contribution?
Well, we had increased it, it was actually 10 million over 2 years with this 2-year deal to help avoid a premium increase. So we built that into our budget, and someone had to come up with the money. So the district took that on. Going forward, we're not looking at really premium increases this year, so we've got enough demands on the budget already. We're struggling in other areas, so yeah, I didn't have that on the radar to keep adding to it. We're just trying to keep things level here for a year.
And this is also a 1-year proposal. This is not like the previous one that was multi-year?
Well, there's a lot in here that is 2 years, so the clinic is 2 years. The wellness starts in a year and a half, so it's 2 years. We have to come back again if we feel we want a premium increase the following year. We're not addressing it right now.
Gotcha. So, I mean, it's difficult to see that 5 million extra contribution go away and simultaneously also increase the premiums.
But it's not going away. It was one time in 19, they added an additional 5 million in. We added an additional 5 million in 2018. We're just not adding any additional monies in at this point. The district, well, I let Diane
Well,
speak to
we
that.
sustain
What's the impact
it.
by not adding that additional 5 straight up from right now, July 2019?
It wouldn't, even if we left this language in, it's not being added. We can leave the language in, that's fine. It just says in 2019 we're going to do it. We did it.
We sustain it. Once we're not rolling back.
It's like a raise.
Yeah. No, it compounds. Or sorry, it stays.
It stays, but we're not continuing, we're not going to say we put 10 million over 2 years. We're not talking about putting 15 million over 3 years. We invested the 10 into the employer's contribution, and by doing that, we say premiums haven't been raised for 6 and 7 years for the employee. There have been increases on the employer side to make that possible. And fortunately, they haven't been, that's fairly manageable. We've seen other districts that have had a really hard time where they're looking at double-digit percentage increases.
I mean, I guess we just, to be blunt, we view this as there's a lot of take here and no give. The clinic is a give, but that's a give that was already kind of agreed to look into it, and if there was no adverse reason to oppose it, to continue forward with it. So while it's being put in language to implement it, we already had agreed to look into it and see how feasible it was, so.
Yeah, but looking into it and actually doing it are two separate things.
I mean,
Right.
There is a cost. It's going to cost more than $1 million to put that in.
Right, startup costs, and then with the co-pays and the savings and everything, it hypothetically should pay for itself, is the goal.
One would hope, but we don't know that. I think the
Why-
district's
why do
taking
you
on that
think it-
burden.
How do you think it's going to pay for itself? People are
Because-
going to use, we're going to be funding it with salaries of a doctor, a medical technician,
Right, but all
running it.
the savings to the healthcare plans from people utilizing this low-cost, fixed-cost alternative, that's, again, the goal of it, beyond the benefit to employees and reducing their out-of-pocket, is that if thousands of doctors' visits are now at this clinic and the cost is fixed, once you've covered the cost of that facility and those employees that you contract with, continued cost is entirely savings on the plan, because you don't have to raise how much you pay the staffing when you sign a 1-year contract for them to staff the clinic.
Well, first of all, I've always told you, this is not a money-saving thing. I do not believe we will save money. I think that there's a possibility after 3 years, some of the clinic people that run clinics say you could see some savings. But you're talking down the road, so we're not going into this thinking we're gonna save money. We're offering it to you because you've been asking for it. So, do I think it could be positive? Yes, because we could add wellness things to it. We could make, sure that the doctors there are talking to people about lifestyle changes and things they can do when they're being treated for an earache or something else. It gives you the opportunity to bring up subjects maybe, but that's how we would impact wellness there. Please don't think that we're going into it thinking we're going to save money. You have to consider that with that high option HMO, we're not asking for this year for any premium increases or plan design changes for the members. So we think that's a give. So you might be looking, you're saying, oh, this seems like a lot of takeaways. We think we're giving you a clinic, we're giving you a wash with more positives and negatives on the wellness rewards. And the only thing we were asking to take away was new hires, people that aren't even affected by, they don't work here yet. And we're not even asking for that until 2020. So this September, it wouldn't affect them this August, but it would be for 2020. So we really thought this was a thank you, we'll sign today offer.
I don't know if we view it that way.
Well, I see that. I'm kind of shocked, to be honest with you. We worked hard to not put in the costs, not change the details of the wellness rewards program that need to be changed. They're too low. The blood pressure at 140/90 is not a good target for people to reach. It needs to be lower.
It's actually considered high blood pressure.
You don't want a wellness program that is getting people the idea, well, I passed your marker, I must be okay. No, 140/90 is too high.
Maybe we're just more accustomed to that level in our environment here or something.
I think that might be true.
I mean,
But, hey,
that was the consideration when we actually agreed to have it 140/90, because we knew, based on our population, that going with a standard by the American Heart Association or American Diabetes Association just would not, it would have so many more people that had a problem with it. But we're starting to see where, the measures that have been put in place are starting to make a difference. And the other programs that we have in place are starting to make a difference, along with things that are not negotiated on the health plan side, more programs to address high blood pressure. So it's to just keep that standard in our minds to think, oh, that's great. No, we knew going in, the BMI is not where recommended, nor was the blood pressure. But we went with it based on what we knew our population, where they were.
So you're saying the BMI threshold will also
No.
become more strict?
No, we have not requested to reduce that, but from a standpoint of what is recommended, we're much higher than what's recommended. We put a mechanism to allow, when there is improvement, to have that satisfy it. So we've tried to work with where we know our people are, still have methods that come along to encourage improvement, and not necessarily demand that's what's recommended by the health community be what we have in place at this time. We just know we need more time to get there. So we've identified and know where we stand, but let's realize that that's, what it is. It's not what's recommended.
Well, we haven't proposed any changes this year. I guess we're just trying to think about future conversations as this continues to evolve, but, okay, so I think we heard from you guys on the clinic and on the new hires. I think the other issue we had there was with the employees that have a spouse or dependent with the wellness rewards program, and splitting that discount on the reward, but then there'd be a premium increase if there was no action. I guess I'm just trying, I think that's the only piece we haven't
Yeah.
heard back from you on.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Just say, right now, my spouse and I don't participate, so I pay an extra $600 in premium because of that, as it relates to the rewards program. If you increase the cost to $50, by $50, and you separate it, and neither one of us participate, now I'm paying an extra $1,200?
Correct.
So that is a direct increase to me. It's not a wash. It's a direct increase if I don't participate, because I just felt I was averse to doing it.
Correct.
Yeah, you'd have to take action and do it to avoid an increase.
So otherwise, I got a $600 increase in my monthly premiums. I mean, in my monthly premiums for the year.
$50. right?
Potentially, yes.
We didn't come to real consensus on that.
Okay. Well, you had asked some questions along that program about the participation and how it breaks down. I'm sorry, I'm not loud enough. I believe your team and Mr. Katz had some questions about how many people are participating, how many spouses are in or out currently. So that's something we can go back and bring back some more data.
Yeah, I think that might better inform us to know the impact of that as to, like you said, how many people from those affected groups, employee with spouse, employee plus family, how many people there are, how many participate and currently obtain full benefit from the wellness program, how many people participate but not their spouse. Some of the data might better inform us about the true impact on how many people that might make us be able to make a more informed decision. But it's worth noting, and again, and I know you've stated your position that in the past 2 years, the district's been willing to put the up to $5 million in, but the suspension from that practice over the past 2 years raises concerns on our part that is, just to be brutally honest, that is going to lead to the elimination of the annual surplus, which will be a leverage point to then come in and say we are in dire need of premium increases. That's my personal concern, that if the surplus now is almost entirely that additional contribution from the district and you eliminate it, there is no surplus. And then next year, because this is a one-year deal, next year there's no surplus, we have to increase premiums. So that our concern is that this is a teed-up ball to be hit 12 months from now with some of the changes. And I mean, that's just an honest concern of ours, that this is the beginning of what will be a bigger ask in the future.
Let me just ask Mr. Burke a question so I'm clear on this. The $10 million we've added over the 2 years, that's now part of the budget, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're not pulling money out. That budget was increased over the last 2 years by $10 million, right? So we're not teeing up anything. What we're doing is we've got it at a point we think is manageable and doable without, because you keep talking about we're going to hit the employees. Well, the board's been the one taking the hits for the last 8 years. They've been absorbing every single premium, because it's not that healthcare costs have gone down. We all know that. The fact that our employees aren't paying more has been borne solely by the board and by the district's budget. So the fact that we're not adding another $5 million in doesn't mean that we're taking money out. We're leaving it as is, as the amount of money that's paid into that as that line item for healthcare is staying the same.
That's absolutely correct, and I think Mr. Katz probably understands that, and maybe he's thinking, in an ideal world, we would just continue to invest an additional $5 million each year to avoid any type of overrun, because to offset rising costs, we don't really have the discretionary money to do it. That $10 million investment, when we sat down a couple of years ago with that, we came to the table and asked the employees to pick up half of it. And we were trying, and I think we made some design changes, but we were able to keep the employees' premiums flat. So that was a result of negotiation where we said, okay, the district will pick up 10 million and we'll make these changes, and hopefully that'll keep the plan in good shape for another couple of years. But this year we came in with no premium increase. Arguably, there may be one, I guess, if you've got a spouse and you're not going to participate in the wellness rewards program regardless, then yeah, that group of folks would be facing a potential increase. But otherwise, as a whole, we were kind of thinking, looks like the plan's in decent shape, and we're not going to ask the employees to contribute more, and we weren't expecting to contribute more ourselves. And if I had to do that, you know, we have a reserve we're building into the budget for salary considerations. It's the same pot of money. So I would have to say, okay, well, it's more important to the employees to the state of the health insurance fund than, you know, a cost of living increase or a raise this year. So that would be the trade-off.
Right. But and I do hear you, and I don't want to move away from that, but I feel a need to make a correction to a statement that was made that it was done, the plan has been managed solely by the district taking a hit. That is not true, you know, because as a matter of fact, Mike started out his beginning statements about how we work together to reduce those costs. I'm not saying the district didn't take any financial additional costs, but what I am saying is that we've made some changes to help improve the plan as well, that we've sat at this table and agreed to. So it wasn't just solely that, it was a cooperation of us working together that's caused us to be in the position we're in now. So I think, you know, since that's said, I think it needs to be clear that it is the cooperation that we've given in the past and that we continue to plan on doing. It's just that, you know, when we see there are challenges, we believe that we need to speak to those. And that's all we're really doing.
Is the district, in not proposing a multi-year kind of locked-in premiums, whether, say we were to agree or disagree, whatever, to the requests, is there no desire or willingness to make this a 2 or 3 year premium level, as opposed to having to come back next year and again renegotiate hypothetically premium increases again?
The first, yeah, and Mr. Harris, we appreciate your comments. I mean, that's anyone who is no longer going to Walgreens is helping us this year manage the cost, right? We have made changes that you guys helped us get through to save a little money. The 1 year versus 2 years, I definitely would not want to go 3 years. Even 2 years makes us a little nervous because, you know, I don't know, we've got a pretty good streak going with 6 or 7 years with no premium increase. And when I see other people struggling with rising costs, we can't predict that well. Things can easily turn south on you. And so we have to be kind of conservative and cautious. So the further we have to go out, the more risk we take on our side to say we're going to shoulder whatever happens for the next 2 or 3 years. So that's why we were kind of interested in a 1 year deal, just to because we weren't looking for big changes. Normally, if we're going to take a longer approach to it, we try to work in some changes that we think anyway that'll help save money over that same time period, so that it's not just premiums. It's also, we're changing our plan to hopefully save money. The clinic, you know, I think everyone's kind of excited about the clinic. I think it'll be a convenience for a lot of us and hopefully a good experience. But yeah, Ms. Howard's right. We don't think it's going to cost us some money initially, and then hopefully we get to like a break-even point. And some of the things we talked about, using it for like the employee physicals and things, that'll help defray some of the costs. But you know, we're going to be doing an RFP to bring in somebody here, and we're going to have to figure out how many hours we want it open and what type of staffing level and all that stuff, and it's going to be fairly expensive. Sorry.
All right. So could
We've got some time. I don't think we have to get it'd be nice to have knocked this out in one session, but.
That's what I was going to say, maybe, unless anyone has anything else to say, maybe caucus for a couple minutes to determine if we're ready to proceed or if we want some more time in a second session.
Sounds good.
Get the data.
To get the data too on
Yeah,
the.
right. Yeah, we owe you some information on the rewards program.
If I just may, about the rewards program or the wellness, The purpose and the goal of the wellness program is actually something we can probably all agree upon. It's a great thing, improve people's health, and et cetera. However, we need to ascertain if it's successful or not. And how many years ago did we start this? I don't want to misquote. 5? For the
Outcomes-based?
the wellness was.
I think it was for 2012 is when we implemented
Okay.
outcomes.
I think it would be helpful for us to be able to look at that to see if it's successful, is that the percentage of those that did not meet the required criteria and have subsequently advanced to the level where they're able to achieve the $50 awards. That will tell us if this whole program is successful or
That
not.
actually doesn't tell us. What tells us is the claims and the types of claims we're getting. What we've shown you in years past, and I'm sure they can get the data before, one of the leading indicators is that the people who are diabetic.
Right.
And our increase, and I'm sure they can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what we've seen, the trend is that we have more pre-diabetics in our system than in the national average, because we're catching them before they become diabetic. And we have fewer diabetics than the national average. Because of the programs we have in place, we're catching some of these preventable diseases quicker than the national average due to our wellness. But I'm sure that we have some of that data, but it's not driven solely on those people who complied and those people who are complying this year and who passed this year and who didn't. That fluctuates more.
But we do have
Yeah, I
some
mean-
data, we do have some data on that because, when we initially rolled out the program, we said that you'd have to be patient because it would take 3 to 5 years for us to begin to get some data to say, is it really changing behavior? So yes, we do have some data that we can share for folks who have missed those markers in the past.
Right.
Who have stayed in the program, continued to participate, and we've seen steady improvement in each of the categories.
I emphasized the $50 because I put a monetary value on it, because then if these people have achieved that and changed their lifestyle, which we all want, it's actually indirectly giving that individual a raise. It's $50 in their pocket. So that is what we're here for, to represent our members. So that's where I was coming from with that.
So I guess if we could get, and I'll put some of my questions in the email just so that they're concise, but a little more data, and like I said, that might better inform us so that we can determine how we move forward.
No problem, that sounds good.
Okay, so we'll get back with you and set up some dates for the next session then.
Okay.
All right.
301?
301.
Guys have another meeting?